what ferns I've had the best luck with, or which ones I think would work well for landscaping. And, you know, some of these ferns seem like they're quite hardy. Some of them seem like they might need a little supplemental water. And
Right. Well, what I'm looking for in landscaping, of course, is the hardiest and the one that is going to survive with the least amount of care and work. And of course, then what I need to know is whether they prefer shade or sun, whether they want to be in pots or in the ground, and essentially what their habits are. And then we can incorporate those adapt them to the landscape that I have in mind, whether it's sun or shade. That's the most important. Sun and shade is really important.
right. So, well, the two ferns that do the best in direct light are this Campyloneurum, which is really something that mostly grows up in the canopy, but it shows up everywhere in the clearings too, at the base of trees. This is really hardy, and you hardly ever need to water that unless you have a really dry season. This Campyloneurum, and then this thing over here, which is Nephrolepis. It's basically a Boston fern. And there's some controversy about whether it's truly native to this region, and the taxonomists don't even agree. But it does show up on the open road sides, and it volunteers, it does well. And these two grow in basically the same places. And I think you could do something like intersperse them, or they've got very different looking leaves. So if you're after a variety of textures,
That would be a gorgeous combination, a big cluster of these with some of these interspersed or the other way around. And then you get a contrast of two different kinds of ferns that totally different look.
A third one that does well and kind of shows up everywhere is that Phlebodium.
This is gorgeous.
The new leaves have that beautiful bluish tint. The Phlebodium and this Campyloneurum are hardy. They tend to show up in clearings anyway, and so I think it would be very low maintenance and painless to do landscaping with those. If you want to get some little specialty nooks that are a little shadier and a little more humid, they're going to need more care, or else the creation of a pretty special microenvironment.
Well, one of the things that you can do is you get these higher things growing and creating an atmosphere, because right away they're probably going to create their own soil atmosphere.
Right.
And then you start putting in the things that are a little bit more delicate.
Right, the adiantum, the little
Exactly.
maidenhair ferns can slip in underneath. And,
Yes.
yeah.
And if they're near the house and you can water them every once in a while, then that's great. And if you can't water them, then my philosophy is what survives and does beautifully in its own environment, or in the environment that you've put it in. And if it doesn't survive, then maybe it shouldn't be there without a lot of work.
But one thing we can do to kind of find a middle ground there is to do something with recapturing water, like when we were talking about landscaping over near those big buildings.
Yes.
If we could do something with capturing rainwater off the roof and then doing maybe some watering out of some system that we could think up over there, that
would
to
work.
me would be ideal.
So Deidre, these ferns are beautiful. What else can you show me that's going to work in a landscape that is maybe again in the ground and somewhat hardy?
I can think of 3 or 4 things. One actually is this guy right here. That's a bird's nest fern. So it's an asplenium. It looks kind of like this in the sense that it has these long strap-like leaves, but this is actually a fern that grows up in the canopy, but it does well in pots. I actually don't know if you could plant it directly in the ground, but I think that's an attractive fern that you might not landscape with on a large scale like you could with these, but as kind of an accent.
All right.
Then if we're sticking with things that will work in the ground, these Thelipteris do well. And you can plant them in the ground. The new leaves are beautiful. The old leaves tend to not look so great, so you might have to do a little bit of clipping. But they're super hardy. but they need a little more water than the Campolenurum. So I've got them here to catch this water that comes off the roof.
And then beautiful right there with the stones too. That's a nice arrangement.
Yeah. And they've got a lot of three-dimensionality to them. There's a hanging fern that seems to do quite well, and I think is beautiful. This Pacluma. The birds are foraging in the leaf litter. Feel the texture of this.
Ooh,
Isn't that
so
soft?
Yes,
it's soft
wonderful.
as a baby's bottom. Don't you
It's
think?
quite soft.
It is. And these need a little water, but they grow fast and they look good. So if you had something like a
window box,
or an area where you wanted to have some of these kind of hanging pots in front of either an ugly area or just to kind of put some mid-level texture, these guys do well.
Okay, I see that you have other things in that pot with this fern.
Yeah, I like combinations.
I think it's beautiful.
These are, I love these. These are those shoestring ferns, those Vitarias. They take a little more care. You would need to have somebody who said, I want to take care of those shoestring ferns. They need water, but I love them. I think people all over the world should have those as houseplants.